All right, welcome to a new episode of the Chamber Talk Show podcast. Today we're going to be talking about, are you sad? And sad meaning seasonal affective disorder, anxiety, depression, and all the things that are included in quarantine fatigue. So there was a recent incident in the Dallas area where some patrons of True Kitchen restaurant, not to be confused with the local hotspot club or bar, where some patrons decided that they wanted to enjoy their evening out with a little twerking, and this caused quite a bit of controversy. I feel like this, and this is just my opinion, let me share that first. I feel like this one isolated incident has been completely blown out of proportion because we have been isolated in our homes and people are dying to get out. We are fortunate to have our own mental health experts and our wellness and fitness expert. That's Dr. Tomekia, Dr. April, and Dr. Tamara. We are going to talk about this right now. Do you think that people are suffering from a bit of a combination of all this: quarantine fatigue, seasonal affective disorder, depression, anxiety, and give us free? Who wants to go first? Dr. April, Dr. Tamara, what you got?
Well, I think that people are. So that was why, maybe folks wanted to get out. Now, I think I agree with him not wanting to set the stage with the people at the restaurant twerking and things like that. But I do not agree with the delivery. I feel like he could have handled that in a different way. So what do you guys think?
Well, let me ask you a question. Wait, let me just ask you a question. What part of his delivery do you agree with? Because to my understanding, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, he did off of camera and footage. He approached these individuals twice, very professionally and in order. But what was filmed was the straw that broke the camel's back. So what part of that did you find inappropriate?
Well, I guess just the curse words and maybe addressing the entire restaurant. I did read where he did address them twice previously that wasn't filmed, but maybe just having security escort them out and leaving the third time, not saying what he did, using the profanity to everybody that was in there.
Okay.
So I've been there a couple of times. I've been for brunch. Well, actually it wasn't brunch. I just went early in the day and had lunch, and I've gone for dinner as well. When I went for lunch, I thought, okay, the music is a little loud, but the ambiance was great. It was nice. The food was good. The wait was a little long, but I can not really imagine someone twerking on the furniture. And so I was appalled at that. And plus, I am a little OCD. So I actually envisioned someone twerking near my food, on the furniture, near my table, and I was flabbergasted. Now, I've heard people say he needs to change the music, but the music was good. The DJ is there. Again, just a very nice environment. So I probably would have been a little devastated if I was there.
Question. I always got a follow-up question. Is the food commiserate with the wait time to get into this spot? That's what I want to know.
It is.
Okay.
Really. Like the lamb chops are amazing.
That's all I needed to know. Okay.
Throw that in there.
Come on, Dr. Tamara. Come on.
Are the lamb chops twerkable? Would you twerk over those lamb chops, Dr. Tomekia? Maybe in the privacy of your own home.
In my bathroom, because in my bathroom at my house, I am Beyonce. I am that. I meant to tell you guys that. I forgot to tell you that when we talked this week. But I put my music on as loud as it can go, and I dance just like Beyonce. Well, not just like Beyonce, but as close as I can get to Beyonce. So I do love music. I just don't think twerking is appropriate in a public place. Or maybe it's not appropriate in a restaurant.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe a nightclub.
What about a chair twerk? If they would have just set it down and just...
Well, you can chair twerk. I think that's probably
okay. I'm okay with chair twerk.
And it feed my soul.
But no movement around my food, period. I don't want movement. I already was I had a mask. I was masked up. But when I thought about, I was actually angry because he had already addressed this 2 times. I think that he should have had security or someone to escort her out the first time she did it because it was so inappropriate.
Right.
But then time number 3, Dr. Tamara, you need to come on because I need therapy about this one.
No, I do. I agree with you, and I agree with all of you as far as, you know, I'm sure as a business owner, this is not just a stressful time for, you know, for patrons and things like that, but restaurants are, especially during this COVID time, are in a very, you know, peculiar place. I mean, it's hard for them to keep their doors open. So if they have things like that that could potentially, you know, bring problems to the restaurant, I can totally understand why he was upset. And, you know, at the same time, what, you know, Dr. Tomekia, your point about, okay, if you don't want an establishment where people may be twerking, maybe there is a time to look at the music. You know, maybe have the same music, but is it kind of loud to where it's kind of club-like, and it does give you the feeling of, I can twerk in here. So that may be something to consider as well. But I would say right now, people's anxieties and just during this COVID time, everybody's on a bit of an edge. So I can understand how, you know, whoever was doing the twerking was like, oh, this is my first time out. The clubs are closed. I want to twerk. I'm in this Black-owned restaurant. This is fantastic. I'm seeing all these people. I just want to twerk over these lamb chops. I get that, but I also get there is room for me to also get where he's coming from as, okay, this is not the kind of establishment that I want. And after the 3rd time, I've told you twice, and now it has reached a point where I'm about to use some curse words. So I totally get how the situation got to where it was.
Well, let's tie that back into depression and anxiety. So, oh, well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What is your interpretation of what happened, Dr. KaNisha?
Look, I'm just sitting here thinking about food and I want to dance. But I understand like that it's inappropriate. But I am actually in full support of this restaurant owner, and I'll tell you why. One, I am a Black woman and I'm a Black mama, and I was raised by a Black mama. And sometimes when you dealing with Black folk, we don't move and we don't do right until somebody talk to us like our mama would. And my mama, being the Sunday school teacher that she is, sometimes she done told us 400 times to do something like wash her dishes. And nobody moves until an expletive comes out about clean your room and wash your dishes. So I don't think it's necessarily it's fair to judge him on the 3rd go round after 2 times he told grown people to respect his place of business. Secondly, I mean the music. I listen to music when I'm eating at home. Like my mom, I'm from Louisiana. My mom right now is going to get shrimp because she's about to put them in crawfish boil with some potatoes and corn. And the thought of it makes me
I'm like, come on back, Dr. KaNisha. Come on back to us.
Soul food touches your soul. But I can still contain myself. I can keep my twerk in a chair. And I think that's a reasonable ask. Enjoy the lamb chops, enjoy the food, and keep your twerk in a chair. That's all. All right, now back to, so back to the depression and anxiety. I do believe that planned, safe outings such as this is what people are using to combat the isolation, depression, and anxiety that they feel. I mean, we are human beings that have a desire to be in contact with other human beings. And this virtual world works for some, but not all others. And just as much as this pandemic and this virus is going on, I have been very, very vocal on all of my platforms about my fear of the compound of the pandemic, election anxiety, racial tensions, all of this compounding with historically December and January. You guys that work in the mental health profession, you know December and January are our peak months for suicide, as well as seasonal depression, holiday anxiety. And so you already historically had this baseline level of heightened mental health, incidences, and you're combining more on top of that. It scares me. It truly, truly scares me.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about exactly what depression is for folks who really don't know, because sometimes people misinterpret depression for sadness, and depression is more than just sadness. So most of the times when people suffer from depression, they experience persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness with loss of interest in things that they normally would enjoy. Sometimes emotional problems caused by depressions, individuals can also present with physical symptoms such as chronic pain, digestive issues with just with just depression. So with that being said, depression also carries, to be diagnosed with depression, you have to have these symptoms persistent for at least 2 weeks. So that differs from sadness, because when you're generally sad, sadness is a normal emotion. So everyone experiences sadness at some point in their life, from the death of a loved one, a breakup, or things like that. But generally, when you're experiencing sadness, you can still do some things that you enjoy, such as watching TV or hanging out. So what do you guys, how can you tie that in? Help me out a little bit, Tamara.
Well, I mean, I would definitely want to reiterate what you said about that everybody feels sadness and depressed mood at sometimes. Normal, totally normal emotion. And I would say when it falls into the realm of where it is affecting your daily functioning, that's when you really need to take a look and see what's going on there. I also see during this time that another thing to really consider, along with everything that Dr. KaNisha said, with everything that's going on in the world during this time, also, and Dr. April, you said that death of a loved one, grief usually hits people a lot during this time too. And sometimes they don't even recognize it. I have some people say, I'm just feeling really off and I don't know why. And then when we start thinking, it's like this may be the anniversary of when a loved one has died, or just maybe it's been a few years since someone that they love has passed away. And this is their first or second or third holiday that they are spending without that person. So I do think, there are sometimes things that kind of creep up on us that we don't even recognize, but we just kind of feel in a funk and we're not knowing why that is. So definitely when there are some things, and it may just kind of be your sleep is off and you don't know why, or you're just feeling more irritable at home or at work, and you're just feeling off. But when you kind of look at all of these things together, and I will say this too, that there are a lot of people who are very functionally depressed. People I find who are just used to doing well, you are a high achieving person, you get the job done, and who have a lot of just kind of general motivation, can function at their job pretty well and still be extremely depressed.
Yeah.
And they may be coping by maybe hitting a few more happy hours, drinking at home, maybe even, smoking more weed to, kind of calm down and to go to sleep at night. So if you're recognizing that maybe you're using more substances, maybe you're doing some things that, just some things feel a little bit off, that may be a sign that depression and anxiety in this season is, it's hitting you harder than you have imagined, than you realize.
Yes, I think the main thing, just like Dr. KaNisha said, sometimes when you are experiencing depression, you do have thoughts of suicide. Suicidal ideation comes in. You also just normally lose interest in the things that you would normally be doing. It's like you're numb. It's so many people that are walking around and just going through the motions of life and not really living. So it's just that numbness of I'm getting up and I'm doing the routine. going to work, coming back home, eating, taking a shower, going to bed, getting up and doing the same thing over again, but really not taking the time to implement any type of self-care, because that's important. That has to take place. So, Dr. Tomekia, in your realm of fitness and whole wellness and things like that, what do you think are some things that people can do?
I think whatever it is, or whatever it takes to move, you need to move. You need to be active. If it's just a brief walk in the neighborhood, or if it's just going out to see a friend, to talk. I mean, I know right now we have social distancing, but you've got to move yourself. Something physical is going to help you mentally, emotionally. It does me. You mentioned, Dr. April, self-care. I'm huge on self-care. I'm huge on massages. I contacted my massage guy today. I get stretches. I get facials. I haven't been getting them since, since the start of the pandemic, but I am always doing something to improve myself holistically, everything, even mentally. Like we talked about music earlier. I put music on. If I feel myself getting sad, I'll turn it up as loud as I can and dance as hard as I can dance. And then I forget about whatever it was that made me sad in the first place. So I'm so big on that. And just even talking about sad, I just saw this past week, Robin Williams' son was on, I think it was like maybe Inside Edition. They were interviewing him because, remember, he was a comedian, he was funny, and he committed suicide a few years ago. And it's someone that you look at that's in the spotlight. He has all this money, he has all this fame, and yet he killed himself. And so it doesn't matter. It transcends color, race, um, all
Finances.
categories, finances, everything. And I don't ever want to get in that position. So I always, even my friends, when they're down and out, I say, hey, come over, I can pull my cars out. We can get out here and do a little something, even if it's jumping jacks. And even if you're not a person that's really physical, find something that you can do that you appreciate, even if it's art, but you have to find something that's therapeutic.
And I just want to piggyback on what you said. Like, I want people to realize that when I am saying SAD, it's actually an acronym for seasonal affective disorder, which is depression that revolves around the winter season. And it's due to several reasons. We're getting less sunlight, so activity, especially outdoor, we have very few hours of sunlight. So to be outside and get as much as you can is so important for the patients that I take care of in northeastern states like Maine, where it's ridiculous the few hours of sunlight that they have in the brittle winters with snow. I actually recommend that they get UV lights inside their house to help combat that, because people don't understand the importance of vitamin D. Vitamin D is not just for like strong bones. It's not actually just a vitamin. It more so behaves like a hormone in regulating our moods and how we perceive things. And with depression, it's not so simple as just snap out of it. As someone who does suffer with seasonal affective disorder, I had been in medicine for almost a decade before I had been properly diagnosed. I had been worked up for everything from chronic anemia to fatigue to hypothyroidism, when really it was seasonal affective disorder. I had physical manifestations of not just a poor mood, because it wasn't even that I even felt sad. I didn't feel anything. I'd lost joy in all the previous things that I had found joy in. And the only thing that would pull me out of my bed was my desire to provide for my family, especially my daughter. But it was a literal physical weight. It's hard for me some days to lift my head off of my bed pillow. So it's not even, I don't feel sad. I feel nothing. And I have no motivation, and I feel like parts of my body weigh as much as a car. That's how I have to describe it to people so they get it. It's not, oh, I'm sad and I want to cry. No, I don't feel anything, but I can't move. My body feels like concrete. and I'm not motivated to do anything. And people need to understand that about this entire process. Don't just tell someone to snap out of it.
Yeah.
And don't just ask people, how are they doing? They're so generic. Like you said, when you're talking about comedians, like historically suffer, like they make the world laugh, and not people don't understand that part of that is a coping mechanism. Like a lot of people assume that I'm an extrovert when I'm actually an introvert, but I make people laugh as a coping mechanism to my social anxiety. So don't just assume that, your vibrant social butterfly friend is okay. Quit asking people, are they okay? Ask people, what are you dealing with? And be open to hearing them. And sometimes when you ask a person a question, it doesn't mean that they always want you to be that solution. They want to feel heard. So repeat back to them what they're saying to you. So those are my key points I give people during this, especially during this time of social distance in a virtual world, when you're calling and you're checking in on your loved ones, on your friends. Ask them, hey, not like, how is it going over there? What are you dealing with? What are specific pinpoint questions that you're going to get a decent answer? Because if you ask them, hey, how you doing? I'm good. Good days, bad days. Come see, come stop. That's the answer you're going to get. Ask them, what are you dealing with? What are your major stressors right now? What are you doing to combat this quarantine fatigue? And that's when you're going to get real answers and also see an avenue where you can be of assistance. But really listen to that person. Repeat back to them what you heard, so you're letting them know, I hear you. And I always remind people, check on your strong friends, because those are the ones that people are always surprised by, that they don't make it to the next year. And think about all the people who have lost someone, not just to COVID, which has actually surpassed heart disease as the #1 cause of death here in the United States. It's just happened in the last couple of days. But think of all of these people who are going to experience their first holidays without their loved ones.
Yeah.
And that is why I think we have to take a more active approach. We have to do our part to check in and try to stay as safely, socially distant, connected, if that makes sense, as possible.
Okay. And Dr. KaNisha, I think that description that you gave of depression is a fantastic one. And it is important to distinguish what it looks like, because a lot of people do think, okay, I'm not crying. Maybe I don't feel sad, but that numbness, and I often tell people that when there's a numbness, when there's an emptiness there, that is not the lack of emotion. That's actually your body saying, I have had so much emotion, I cannot deal with it. And your body literally just shuts down. So you cannot feel anything. So I often hear that there's just emptiness. Like I feel literally nothing. Nothing's making me sad. Nothing's making me happy. There is nothing there. And that is really when I hear that, and they just don't, all the things that people normally like to do, they don't like to do. Typically, those are the signs to me as a therapist saying, okay, this is clinical depression, and there maybe needs to be medication on board or something like that. So I definitely, that I really like that description that you gave. And also, when it comes to being able to connect and asking your friends what's going on, and because I think we also realize that when we are feeling that way, that we may be the only one out there that's feeling that way. When we recognize that a lot of times there are so many of us who have felt that way at times, that you are not alone. Thank you for sharing that story about, how you felt, Dr. KaNisha. I know after I had both of my kids, I had postpartum depression. And so I recognized that, okay, what that looks like and feels like, and how that's different than just sad mood. There is an emptiness, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. And it can feel very alone when you are dealing with that, because you're seeing other people, you're seeing your friends, they calling you, hey girl, what's going on? You're just like, oh, has anyone else been here before? There are so many people who have been exactly where you are and have felt exactly how you have felt. So it can feel very isolating when you're in it, but just know that you're not alone. And there are a lot of different avenues that you can reach out to there. If you're wanting to find a therapist, I always, especially for Black women out there, a good place to go is therapyforblackgirls.com and find, if you're wanting a Black therapist, there's Psychology Today that you can go and find therapists in your area. If you're feeling, like you're wanting to hurt yourself, or even those thoughts are coming to your head, go to suicide prevention, lifeline.org. There are so many resources at the tip of your fingers now.
But let's offer some tips, like some coping skills.
I just want to make sure we do post this. We post this with all of those resources, because that is so, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I mean, aside from the whole entire mission of this trying to help, and I don't want to go in too dark, but I will say this, it was in those deepest moments, even though the thought of me taking my own life, I understood more so the suicidal thoughts, because you just wanted to stop. You want the physical pain manifestations of it to stop. You want the actual feeling imprisoned to your concrete body to stop. You want to get relief and freedom. And it's sad to say, and you do feel you don't want to be a burden to those who care about you, because you feel like you're bearing this weight alone and you don't want to put it off on anyone else. So it was in my deepest and my darkest moments, it gave me that insight into, and that's when I knew it was definitely time to rely on all of my resources. I had already been in conversations with my actual medical doctor. Like I said, I was being worked out for anemia, chronic fatigue, hypothyroidism as well, but also the missing piece as far as like a dietitian, as well as my therapist, my counselor, my spiritual advisor. Like, it was time to get everybody on board. And I actually had to journal. I had to write it down to find those words to explain it to my family. I'm sorry, Dr. April, back to you.
Okay, no problem. I was just saying, like you said, journaling is a really good method to use. So I was wanting to, let's offer some coping skills, some strategies, some tips for people who may not necessarily, want to seek counseling or have the means or finances to do counseling. And they're just, hey, relying on, let me watch these doctors and see what types of tips and information that they can give us. So, what are some things that you think that people could do? Journaling is one, which is really good. Most therapists highly recommend journaling because it's a subjective process. When you journal, you are clearing your thoughts. It's a release. You're putting everything that you're feeling onto that paper. So at that point, it's not bottled up inside. So it helps to thought dump sometimes, but also thought dump with the process, not just writing everything that you feel down. Write it down and really process it. This is how I feel. This is what I'm thinking. These are all my thoughts that are gathered in my head. These are my feelings. This is my plan of action. What is it that I can do to help me move forward to get out of this situation based on my thoughts and my feelings about it? So,
I love that.
Ladies,
I love it.
Anything else?
Well, I don't know why there's but I love that, because a lot of times I write down my dreams, and so that helps as well. I go back and I reflect, and then I feel like it's always a message when it's a certain type of dream, and because all people can't be active, they may have bad knees, they're not really physical. So I love that, Dr. April, because although you may not be able to get out and go bowling or go running or go walking, you can use that as an avenue. And I think that's a great source of therapy as well.
Okay.
And also, I like meditation a lot. And I know meditation, it can seem a bit just very not accessible to people because people are like, oh, I'm supposed to clear my mind. I can't do that because my mind's always, thinking. But I think it's a good way just to kind of get you still at times and to get you centered. And especially those meditations that really kind of focus on your breath, even if it's just 3 minutes, 5 minutes, just being able to just kind of sit and just be with yourself. And there are so many ways there are YouTube videos out the wazoo with meditation. So I would say, start there. There are a lot of great apps like Calm and Headspace. And there's a really great app for Black people and by Black people called Liberate that I really like. So there are a lot of great ways to just kind of start meditation if you are not very familiar with it.
Yeah, that's really good.
Music therapy is awesome. You don't even realize it, but Dr. Tomekia, that's exactly what you were talking about when you change the atmosphere, change your mood, and really infuse yourself with music. And also beyond that, there are definitely, I want to encourage people, whether you feel you can afford it or not, if you need help, you need help. Start somewhere. There are actually quite a few free resources to even begin as far as therapy. There, from hotlines to churches and other religious organizations who provide free counseling, as well as apps, like you said, YouTube and online sources. A lot of people who are suffering and battling with their addiction, I know Celebrate Recovery and a lot of the anonymous organizations are offering free Zoom group therapies as well. But good girlfriend talk. I encourage all of my girlfriends, like, hey, don't call me to gossip. Let's be real. And as I wouldn't consider myself to be a good friend or a good girlfriend if I could not do that. Like, we kiki it up and we have fun, but if you're going to be my friend, I need truth, I need honesty, and I need a little transparency, because I'm not the one. I can't pretend like I got all of this stuff together. I'm barely holding all of this stuff together at times. And if I can't confide that in my tribe, you don't need to be in my tribe. So now's a great time to clean house and make sure that you have some people around you that get to see the true you and share your transparency. And as always, I can't leave a show without highlighting that sex is a wonderful tool for preventing depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorder. And it's great activity to get that heart pumping, blood racing. Just throw that in there.
And there you have it.
I want to piggyback on what you said about resources too, because one of my passions is just for people to really get the help that they need. And if it is to a point where you feel like you need to seek a therapist, there are some fantastic resources that there is, and we will add this to the list of just resources that we have, but there's the Loveland Foundation, which is a fantastic resource for Black women especially, that will give you vouchers to pay for therapy. Awesome. And there's also Taraji P. Henson has a foundation right now that helps pay for therapy as well. So there are a lot of resources out there that you can actually get in front of a therapist too, even if you don't feel like you can afford it.
Yes. And actually her organization just contracted with BetterHelp. So people can go, directly through BetterHelp.com and get linked to a therapist there. So those are really good resources.
My organization, Bright, as in Bright, like Bright Heart Health, accepts all insurances, including Medicaid and Medicare in most states, and it's all virtual. You can literally sit on your phone, on your laptop, computer, or iPad and get professional help from licensed counselors, therapists, medical physicians, and psychiatrists.
Okay.
All right, ladies, I loved it. Great tips. Great tips.
Okay. Well, that sums it up for us for today. So thank you again for joining the Chamber podcast. And until next time, be blessed.